Hello and welcome to this edition of the Angels and Destiny show. Why is this show called this, you may ask? So I'll tell you. The accepted meaning of angel is messenger and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make, firm, establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And of course, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Aurorah. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to both of us to connect with like-minded people. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy. And I'm a spiritual guide and healer, passionate about helping you reconnect with your divine presence and step into your purpose. Now, through angelic Reiki, angel oracle cards, guided meditations, and exploring past and future lives, I support you in healing your past and creating a soul-aligned future. Now, my journey has taught me that with the right tools and guidance, we can all connect to our higher selves, embrace transformation, and live a life full of abundance and fulfillment. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel oracle card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Aurorah, about the incredibly rare and volatile energy of March, including Venus Retrograde, Mercury Retrograde, and the eclipse season. And I've started feeling it already, so it's going to be interesting to see what Aurorah lets us all know is happening. Now, Aurorah is an artist, writer, and producer who has been a dedicated student of Western astrology since 2008, bringing her knowledge to life through her podcast, Blood Moon Milk, launched in 2018. Now, unlike many astrologers, Aurorah is known for her refusal to write conventional horoscopes. Instead, she offers a fresh perspective through her daily email newsletter, The Daily Dose. Now, in it, she distills years of astrological wisdom into digestible insights, helping readers stay attuned to cosmic energies before they unfold, designed to be read in the morning over coffee. Now, Western astrologers have been observing both the skies and human behavior for the thousands of years, and have left archival data and observations. Now, this data is based on observed events during cyclical planetary movements that have been catalogued since the Phoenician times. Now, today, astrologers can use historical data to give predictions based on historical events paired with planetary positions to help define the future before it unfolds. But Aurorah understands that astrology is more than just predictions. It's a powerful tool for personal growth. And she champions the subtle benefits of using lunar cycles as a guide for mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation. By aligning with the moon's phases, her approach encourages individuals to set goals, remain flexible and resilient in the face of challenges, and urges her audience to seize opportunities with a heightened awareness of their consciousness when they rise. She adapts ancient astrological knowledge with esoteric into the practical, down-to-earth advantage for everyday life. And she believes that this pause for reflection is meaningful globally, as a more mindful world is a more peaceful world, and more opportunities and abundance for all. So without further delay, hello, Aurorah, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's a true pleasure.
You're welcome. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Aurorah and I want to be part of this conversation. So please don't be shy. So Aurorah, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how the rare skies wild rides are unfolding for us?
So, yeah, let's start with my journey. Like you mentioned at the top, I've been studying astrology since 2008, which has been about 17 years of continually learning and asking questions about various aspects of astrology. So that's what I bring to the table when it comes to working with a client or even just writing my daily dose emails. I'm really looking to make sense of something that is sort of etheric and ineffable in nature in a way that is accessible and down to earth and useful for the average person just living their life. Um, And I've always been fascinated with astrology and the stars. I have vivid memories of being a child and looking up at the sky, and knowing that I came from the sky, from the stars. On some level, I just know that my soul came from up there somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but I have some hunches. And so that sort of tells me that on some level, we pick and choose where we go, when we are born, when we start our journeys in this life. And in a similar fashion, we choose our gifts and our challenges and our learning opportunities, because I think I get the sense that this planet, if we look at all the planets, Venus is love, romance, and abundance. Mars is action. Mercury is messages. I think Earth is actually the planet of the stage and the school, where dramas unfold and we can experience the extreme highs and lows. But it's up to us as individual players on that world stage to really identify lessons and internalize them and process them and grow, and then extend gratitude towards other people in our community, and provide spaces for healing for people who aren't as well adjusted as we might be at that particular point in time, because it is a journey. And so, what's going on now, though, in terms of these rare skies and wild rides for the astrology of March 2025, we have, all of 2025 is pretty epic in terms of astrological calendars. I have never, ever seen a year in all of the history that I have studied of astrology. I've never seen a year where every single outer planet changes signs. And I mean, I think, I've looked, and I haven't seen anything, and I've gone back to roughly, there's certain points that are very specifically interesting as well. Like, we've got a Saturn Neptune conjunction that happens next year that will kind of kick off a whole new cycle. That's really interesting too. I haven't seen anything like that happen in 9,000 years at 0 degrees Aries. And so right now in March, what we're going through and what we're feeling and witnessing is we've got the combination of a Venus retrograde cycle. She's starting retrograde out in the sign of Aries, which is the sign that she's most vulnerable in. And then she's retrograding back into the sign of Pisces, where she's exalted. So it's this very stark contrast between fiery, impulsive, romantic choices and financial choices to something that's a little bit more divinely guided, if you will, something a little bit more slow moving. And her transition from evening star to morning star happens over that 40-day retrograde period, which is symbolic in ancient historical texts. And her morning star name is Lucifer, the bringer of light. So she goes from this evening star to this morning star, which brings a lot of drama to the table. And then we also have Mercury retrograde happening that kicks off on March 15th and on the Ides of March, which, Mercury retrograde is pretty famous already, so I won't bore people with that. But, it does cause issues when it comes to communication, to travel, technology, all that, really fun stuff we love to have problems with. And we also have eclipse season to top it off. And at the very end of the month, we have Neptune, who's at the final degree of Pisces, the last degree of the zodiac, moving into Aries for the first time and since the 1800s. So the last time we had Neptune in Aries, we saw the beginning of the Civil War. And so that we are going to feel this energy in a very tangible way. And I think people are feeling it. Also, the Schumann resonance has been off the chart lately, but that comes from the sun and the solar activity. So all of these cosmic forces are really conspiring, I think, to bring about some massive changes that we're witnessing on a geopolitical global scale.
Yeah, and the energies have been intense, and we were talking beforehand, and last week it was because of the solar flares and that my energy was just completely, well, and I don't normally get affected, but it's been so strong that I was affected last week. So I'm hoping I'll be able to cope with what's coming up for coming up. So, what kind of things can we expect to come up, and what's the best way of dealing with them?
Well, one thing, so I've been on TikTok talking about this a little bit in regards to Venus retrograde. And I think Venus retrograde, most people think of like, oh, their exes are coming back around for, a second chance or a one night stand or some sort of fling or something like that. But that's kind of surface level and not all that interesting. I think on a like something more interesting to do with Venus retrograde is to really drill down and consider what it is that you value. Because Venus is truly about value. Do you value beauty? Do you value your health? Do you value your wellness? Do you value money? How do you create that financial abundance? But also, do you value things like fair and free elections and the ability to have clean drinking water? And everybody's values are different. But I think that standing on business when it comes to these values right now is something that we are being given a sort of golden opportunity to be able to do during this period of time, especially in financial markets, because the markets typically decline during a Venus retrograde, and they're already declining in like very bold fashion. And so something I did was I picked two stocks that I disagreed with politically. They were Tesla and a stock called Palantir, who is owned by Peter Thiel, who just does not want women to vote. He was the guy who bankrolled Vice President J.D. Vance, and just not a nice person, frankly. And so I placed short sale positions against their companies, and I profited off of the decline in their stock prices and talked about it because, yes, while it's a risky thing to do, generally to do short sale positions, it's when you make it a political statement and you're saying you don't agree with these things, and then other people join in and make a political movement. Also, with the tides of the economy going down in a predictable way because of Venus retrograde, the people who are placing those short sale positions, who are on the side of things like free and fair elections, and not starting trade wars because they need their personal agendas to be backed up, right? I think that we are able to come together as a collective to say that there are things that matter more than money. And this is what matters to us. And we will speak loudly in a way that these people who are in charge and making some terrible decisions, in a way that they can understand it, because it seems like that's the only thing that they care about is money. But when you use your money as your tool to speak for you about your values in a time that is cosmically aligned to follow the trends, I think that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, and it's amazing how astrology can, and the planets and the stars, how they line up. I mean, wasn't it to do with Aquarius, where the planets were aligned, that we had the French Revolution all those years ago, and then we had it here, and things started going all chaotic. So it's like you look back at the history of things and you go, oh, that was happening around that time when all those were in. And now it's happening. But obviously, when you look back, as you said, 9,000 years ago when this happened, we don't really have a lot of history
Oh, definitely. I think what you're referring to is the planet Pluto moving out of Capricorn
That's it.
into Aquarius. That happened on November 19th last year. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the French Revolution and the American Revolution. And so we've come full circle in some ways. At least Pluto has. Planets were in other positions back then, so it's not a complete match for the same energies of the sky, but it is a theme of rebellion, of the people on a grassroots level standing up for themselves, standing up for their freedoms, and saying enough is enough. Enough of the oligarchs, of the corporate interests, sort of toxically mining people for profits and then laying people off who work hard to make those profits a reality for them. And I think, at least in America, we're seeing some really hard sort of kicks in the like kind of donkey kicking back at these institutions and establishments from individual people, and it's starting to really make waves. And it gives me hope, that the astrology is on our side. It is on our side for changing the establishment that really just looks at people as a commodity, for, greasing their wheels. And unfortunately, that's what the healthcare system in America does. That's what most corporations do in America. Most people are not making enough money and getting paid a living wage. Most of the federal government employees have been fired unceremoniously by Elon Musk. And so people are like really having to get creative about what comes next. But also, it's a great time to reestablish what it is that's important to us as individuals and stand up for it, because we, like, cosmically, the energy and the tidal forces are on our side to make lasting, impactful, beneficial change that affects the average person in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And hi, Andy. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining us. So on a personal level, how are these going to affect, how are we going to be affected as individuals on a personal level with everything that, with the eclipses, with the retrogrades?
Well, so eclipse season is happening in the midst of these two retrogrades. And I just recorded my podcast episode earlier today about the eclipse that happens on Friday. And it will affect every single person differently because it depends on where in the chart this eclipse will fall. But generally speaking, eclipses, especially lunar eclipses, the full moon eclipse, they tend to bring about dramatic endings that are just completely unexpected, totally out of left field. And especially if you have this eclipse on one of your personal planets. So when we're born, when we come into this life and we, choose who we're going to be and we're born, there's a picture of the sky that is taken at that moment, at the time of day that you were born. And we call that your natal chart. And if your natal chart has a planet at 22, 23 degrees of Virgo during this eclipse, where this eclipse will be occurring, then there's a pretty good likelihood that you are going to feel some very dramatic exits over the next week. So if you go online, you can pull your birth chart for free. There's a bunch of websites that you can get out there and just Google it, and look it up and fill in the information. But you really want to look and see, like, if you have any planets at 22, 23 degrees of the sign of Virgo, because that's where the action is happening. And that's where I think, metaphorically speaking, heads will roll, and it's almost always something that seems sort of blown out of proportion, something unexpected. It was the last thing we would have ever guessed, but it is a divinely guided moment and sort of destiny in some ways. And so oftentimes when these events occur, beforehand, leading up to them, people get really anxious. There's a lot of anxiety. Oh gosh, what's going to happen to me? And that's why blood moons were thought to be such bad omens back in the day. They're like, oh, shit's really going to pop off because there's a blood moon in the sky. And people would kind of really dread seeing that, which is why I named my show, my business, Blood Moon Milk. It's like, okay, yeah, there's bad things happening, but let's talk about it. Let's find that magical elixir to sort of calm ourselves and grow from this experience, because the universe will always surprise us. I can name half a dozen bullet points of, well, it's in the sign of Virgo. This could have something to do with harvest. It could have something to do with our food and our resources and our agricultural infrastructures. It could also have to do with the earth itself. It's in an earth sign. This eclipse is also in a pretty harmonious aspect to Uranus and Taurus, another earth sign. But Uranus is also very unpredictable and unstable. So it could be that there's something really wonderful that happens from the results of this eclipse a little bit later on, like one door closing really firmly in dramatic fashion, and then something really wonderful happening kind of just like be almost in reaction to it. It's like, when one door closes, somebody opens a window kind of a thing, and you get in anyway to wherever you're trying to go, or you get something even better than you thought you wanted. So just, I would say, be open-minded, but go check your astrology chart. Go see where 22, 23 degrees of Virgo is, because it's going to be, if you have planets there, and I've been seeing a lot of people with Saturn at 22, 23 degrees Virgo lately, which would be, that wouldn't be fun to have an eclipse on your Saturn. Like it would be pretty dramatic. And so there's this part of me that's like, I guess I'm going to get my popcorn and just wait for the comments to start popping off on social media and people wondering what's going on. As an astrologer, I'm like, I have the answers, but if anybody's is actually listening to the answers is a whole other story. That's my battles. People,
Yeah, no,
self-informed.
I mean that's so fascinating. I mean the fact that I think most astrologers, when they're when they're doing this on a daily basis, and they kind of like, I can see how this is playing out. So yeah, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to promote here. I'm going to take a step back here, and that. So in a way, it's kind of like a way of you navigating the world, really, through how the astrology is, and what steps you take and what steps you don't take. But again, I think, as you said, it's on your personal chart, not on a general chart, because what might be for someone else. So I suppose it could be, say, like two people, had, I don't know, I don't know, Venus at 23 degrees Virgo. Yep. They wouldn't have exactly the same experience because of the other planets in their other signs.
Yeah. That's a good point. So when we're born, we consider the time of day that we're born, and that gives us our rising sign, or the sign that was on the horizon, rising in the sky, which is where that phrase comes from. And that number and degree of placement. So for me, I'm an Aquarius rising at 8 degrees. So that then sets up the rest of my chart. I use a Placidus house system. I personally find it to be the most accurate for doing astrology sessions with people. Other people have other systems that they use, but that's what I use. And so that just means that the rest of 360 degrees goes counterclockwise from that 9 p.m. Position. And so it's like 9 degrees Aquarius, then Pisces and Aries. And then that sets up the house system. And the house system tells us the themes that the planets are going to be affecting. And so to your point, two people could both have Venus at 23 degrees Virgo, but one could be born different years like than the other person, different time of day, different day of the year. And so it's really the whole entire complete picture that is all being painted when we look at an astrology chart. And at different times, different things will be activated, just depending on where the transiting planets are moving around in consideration to the natal chart. So it's kind of this double layered kaleidoscope of planetary conversations that we get to interpret to understand underlying themes and challenges and issues. And what I love doing with my work is working with clients to help find themes and timelines and patterns in their chart so that maybe we can look down the road. If we know that historically, like X, Y, or Z has been an issue, we can look at what's going on in those dates, and then we can think about those themes and then look in the future to see when those themes might rear back up, just for future consideration so that we can be prepared. It's about hoping for the best but preparing for the worst.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And of course, the beauty, as you said, is once you know that, even if the most worst thing happens, something better will come along, and you were prepared for that. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to need to maybe not purchase a house now, but in, say, like a year's time, that's going to be the ideal time to do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can the fourth and fifth houses. The fourth house, really, that's the house of the actual home and the abode. So fourth house, we want to look at that for buying a house. For decorating a house, we want to look at the fifth house. So it's like once you've made the purchase and you feel confident in it, then you can have fun with making it homey later on. Or if you're in real estate, for example, and you want to invest, there's another way that you approach that kind of look. It really depends on what the individual is looking to accomplish, what their goals are, what their particular set of circumstances are. And oftentimes we can tell in a chart by just looking at it, like kind of what the highlights are, what the themes are, by just looking at the planetary placements. Once you have some years of study and practice under your belt, it really does become like reading a juicy, like sort of like gossip brag that nobody is naming any names in. It's just like, oh, well, I bet this kind of thing was going on at this point in time for this person, and then you kind of get to ask questions and suss out how that unfolded and how that affected them, and most importantly, how they grew from it, because that's the key. I think that's why we're constantly being given new opportunities to grow that present themselves as challenges, but they're really opportunities in disguise.
Yeah, no, that's, it's just so fascinating. And for anyone who's watching us live, or even the replay, because we will circle back to it, if you've got any questions, not specifically to you, because this isn't a personal reading, but general, about astrology or about the eclipses that we've coming up, about blood moons, the retrograde, then please feel free to ask in the comments, whilst you've got Aurorah here with you. So a blood moon, does it go red?
It can, yeah. It's so usually during an eclipse, usually during a full moon, the sun is being, you can see the sun on the moon, basically. That's what lights up the moon. But during an eclipse, the Earth passes through that beam of light, and it's our atmosphere that is coloring the moon. So every time it'll be different. I've seen different colors, but definitely have certainly seen red blood moons before, and we'll probably see one Thursday night, Friday morning.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I don't think we get to see it here in the UK. I don't think over the UK and Europe.
Well, I mean, you'll be able to see pictures on the internet. People will be
Yeah.
out there taking pictures,
Oh God.
even if you're not getting, if the weather's bad or it's cloudy or something, wrong time of day, you'll see pictures. It'll be cool.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty about modern day, when it comes to astrology and the sky. More people are aware of what's going on in the sky and the planets, and they can share that information. That maybe our ancestors, 9,000 years ago, weren't able to have that communication with each other to share all that information and that knowledge. So I'm guessing it probably makes it easier for astrology now, for astrologers.
Oh yeah, I think it's probably never been easier for somebody to become an astrologer now, because we have technology, we have computer programs that calculate charts for us instantly. When I was a kid, people had to do all that stuff by hand. I have a chart that my dad knew an astrologer, and when I was a kid, he had somebody do my astrology chart, and it was like it was printed out on like that old timey paper that like you had to rip the corners off of,
Yeah.
strips of paper. I still have that in a folder somewhere, and but like somebody had to sit and go in their ephemeris and look up like what planet was at what position at that time of day, and then calculate it for my specific birth time. And like that's a lot of work to do that. I'm so spoiled because people just have to answer a few very simple questions for me, and I can have somebody's chart drawn up in under a minute. But I think what comes with that is there is an influx of people who are curious or interested in astrology, who are self-taught, who are probably doing a bit more harm than good by being out there giving incorrect information, and people are believing it. There are, like, not to say that there's like I don't think that every astrologer should have to go get tested to be able to say that they're an astrologer. I don't think it hurts. I certainly think there are qualifications that add to somebody's validity and that the work that they do. But I think that the barrier of entry is just so low that anybody can just dabble in it now. And I think it really kind of undermines the authenticity and the integrity of the work if we don't protect the knowledge to some degree, because people don't always know what they're doing or what they're talking about, and they can do more harm than good if they're not careful.
Yeah, and I think that I think that's across the whole spiritual,
Yeah.
esoteric realm as well. Again, with the internet and computer systems and everything like that, it's so easy for people to do this, and you really do have to go when you contact a spiritual healer or an astrologer. You really have to go by your gut instinct, what feels right for you, and how you feel with that person you're actually going to be working with, and whether you get that feeling, yes, they are going to be giving me the truth that I need to hear at this moment in time.
Yeah, and not just the truth that you need to hear, but also practical, applicable uses for that truth. It's not always helpful when somebody says, "Oh, that eclipse is going to be on your Saturn or whatever," but like telling somebody, "Hey, there's eclipses and you're also Pisces, Mercury is going to be retrograde around your sun. Be careful while you drive for the next, little period of time." Giving somebody some tangible, practical, grounded tips in order to just stay safe, and make good choices, so that they're not totally blindsided by misfortune, and doing it in a way that's not fear-mongering either, because there's plenty of that in the world for sure. We don't need any more.
No, we definitely don't, and even, when I've had astrology readings, even if there is something that looks potentially in the stars that it might not be the best thing in the world, the way that the astrologer actually explains it, and the steps you need to take and what comes after it really do sort of like help with the understanding of it. And you said, keeping you safe in a space, but even if you have to go through that situation, knowing the reasons behind it, why it's happening, and where it's going to go in the future.
I think we have a question in the
We
comments.
do, yes. So Andy says, so if you knew your date of birth, but not the time of birth, can you still find out which planet is associated with you? Because, yeah, there are a lot of people that don't know the time they were born.
Yeah, there are ways of sort of playing detective and figuring things out. If you don't have your birth certificate, like first and foremost, I tell people to go look at their birth certificate. Normally, 9 times out of 10, unless for some reason, unless you're Italian, like the Italians don't put birth certificates or birth times on their certificates.
Mine doesn't have a birth time on it.
Oh, really? If your parents are alive, you can always ask them, like, what time was it, day or night? Also, if you are naturally more of a night owl or an early bird, I haven't seen any actual studies of this because it would be a hard thing to study, because it's like a missing data set to be able to actually reference. But I suspect that people who are early birds were born in the morning or born on the early side of things. And I think night owls were born a little bit later in the day. So that's one way to kind of suss things out. But also, we can look at dates in history of somebody's life that are particularly like notable, and we can kind of do a little bit of detective work to sort of make a educated guess about which one feels accurate. Normally, when we would say, oh, my planetary ruler is X, Y, or Z, we would look at the sign the ascendant is in, or the planet that rules that sign, and then look at where that ruler is in the chart to kind of get the flavor. So that's one way of doing it. So for me, like I said earlier, I'm an Aquarius rising. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, but also by Saturn. So I look at those two planetary rulers, but my sun's in Sagittarius, so that also has a big role to play too.
Yeah. Luckily, my mum remembered the time I was born. Someone Virgo with Scorpio rising and a Taurus moon. And if you were to look at that kind of like really kind of like does describe me to a T. As I'm definitely not your typical.
So you're a Virgo. Wait,
I'm a Virgo. Yeah.
and what degree of Virgo are you at?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at my
What day of the month?
1st of September.
Okay, so you're like right in the middle then, like 11 degrees Virgo, more or less, I would guess, off the top of my head.
Yeah, possibly about that.
Yeah. Just like out of curiosity, 1st of September.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 9-10 degrees of Virgo. And so all this stuff in Pisces that's been in Pisces for the last bit of time has probably increased that that tension, that like sort of spiritual tension, because it's all happening, or it was happening, right across from where your sun in Virgo is.
Yeah.
Not so acute like at this particular moment, But maybe about a year ago, when Saturn was at 9-10 degrees of Pisces, I'm guessing that probably wasn't a super fun time.
No, no. 2 years, 1 year ago, yeah, wasn't the best in the world. And I do know my North Node's in Pisces as well. So that's
Oh, so you're having your North Nodal return too. So that's a
yeah,
whole other, um,
all different.
yeah. It's like, do you know what degree it is? No, or
Um, it's on my chart, but I don't know off the top of my head.
yeah. Because North Node just entered Pisces back in January. So it's going backwards. It started at the end of the sign of Pisces. So it goes from 30 degrees Pisces all the way to 1 degree and then moves into Aquarius. So, but I mean, that means the South Node's going to be on your sun
Yes.
in about 8 months ish or so. It takes about 18 months for the whole thing to happen. So, about 8-9 months, it'll be getting close, which can feel like a whole other like mile marker in some ways. It doesn't happen very often. It takes 18 years for that to happen.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll look out for that. And Gemma is here. Hi, Gemma. Good to see you. And she says hi, Aurora. And Andy said, and I'm a Libra.
Yeah. Libra. Well, Libras are ruled by Venus, just going off of like very basic astrology without looking at your whole chart. So Venus retrograde in the sign of Aries opposite Libra can really have you feeling in a funk for a little while, Andy.
Yeah, so yes, to be aware of that. It's just so fascinating. And the fact when you talk about degrees as well, because we kind of like we know the sun, might know our rising, our moon, we might know houses, but then it starts getting into degrees
Yeah.
and things going backwards and forwards. So although it sounds really sort of like straightforward, as an astrologer, the amount of knowledge you have to learn to know, all the different degrees and placements and working out how they work with each other. I take my hat off, that you have, you're able to do that, because it can be such fascinating and such deep stuff to go in, and it's amazing how it can tell you everything about a person, really.
Well, we do still have free will, and I think it's a great exercise in like understanding our nature, because if you know what our baseline sort of operating system is, which is what astrology can tell you, then you can really begin to question, well, what do I think is the best choice? And am I just thinking that this is the best choice because of the way I'm wired? Or am I making a rash decision? Is this just, am I being too analytical? Am I not trusting my gut enough? And then bringing in some balance where maybe most people have some kind of imbalance in their chart. It's very rare to find a lot of very harmonious aspects. Those are the rare few lucky people who have just been blessed to float through life and not really have to have too many challenges, and good for them. But most of us, we have to figure out ways to balance out these imbalances one way or another, and understanding what our natural proclivities are based on astrological principles that can be non-judgmental. So it's not about placing shame or guilt. It's about creating space for understanding and acceptance. I think it can be a richly healing tool to use, to just grow deeper in this place that we call home on this planet.
Yeah, beautiful reminder about the fact that we have free will, and the astrology is a guide to help us navigate through life. And Andy says, my funk started about 3 weeks ago, but I will get through it, always do. I'm Googling later. This is so cool. It is. And it's kind of like you start on that and you start going down the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, it is definitely a rabbit hole, but I don't think it's a good idea for everybody to go down that rabbit hole. Just like it's not a good idea for everybody to be a cardiologist or a lawyer. You know, it really does take all kinds of people who to follow their passions in order to have a functioning society. So I think it's interesting, and I suggest everybody go see an astrologist or an astrologer and have a session at least once a year to get the highlights. Like, what are let's look at the strong times and the more easy flowing times, and kind of plan our vacations and investments accordingly. But I don't think it's something, and like for me, astrology has a bigger role to play in my life because I'm literally an astrologer, but I don't think the average person should be living their life by it every single moment of the day. I don't think that's healthy.
No. I mean, if you think back to Elizabethan times, Elizabeth I, she had John Dee, she had her astrologer, and kings of the past had their astrologers, and I'm guessing business people, politicians, even the royals now all have their own astrologers to
Oh yeah. JP Morgan, who is a famous banker in America, he had this library at his mansion in Manhattan that is painted with frescoes of the different astrological symbols. And none of them are particularly, they're all beautiful, but like they're personal to him. So he has his sun sign over the door, and then it's next to his second wife's sun sign of Gemini. So I think he was an Aries. I think she was a Gemini. So it's all sort of random the way he's decided to have it done. But he went in front of Congress back when he was alive and active, and he said, well, millionaires don't have astrologers, but billionaires do.
I like that. Yep. So if you want to be a billionaire, get yourself an astrologer. Go and find people like Aurorah.
Yeah.
You can become a billionaire overnight.
Quite. I mean, anything can happen, especially with these markets the way they are right now. There is money to be made in volatility. If you know how to judge which way the wind blows and place a good bet or two on the markets, you can make a living.
There you go. Food for thought. Food for thought there. Although most of the people that watch this are not that way inclined with that. So, as you know, I do guided meditations and I read angel oracle cards. And each week, I like to ask my guests whether they would like me to do a mini guided meditation or pull a card for themselves and those watching. So, Aurorah, what would you like?
I think I would like a card, please.
Funny enough, I have them in my hand as we speak.
Perfect.
Which isn't unusual for me to have a deck of cards with me. So as always, when I do the cards, I do the cards for what we need to know for your highest good at this moment in time. Because even though I work with the past, when I take people back to the past, it's to learn and understand the past so it doesn't affect them in the present. And when I take people into the future, it's so they can see, understand, know the future, the steps they need to take. So they can go back to the present, start taking those steps and not worrying about it. So let's just give the cards the cleanse and the bless. So what does Aurorah and everyone who's watching this, whether live or the replay, need to know for their highest good at this moment in time? So okay, so the cards are making me work today.
Well, I can answer Andy's question. He said his funk started 3 weeks ago. That was probably when Venus was getting ready to station right before she went retrograde. So you would have been feeling that intensity in opposition to Libra, Sun, and energy. Just a guess, because I don't know your chart.
Yeah, and I've got a feeling that Andy probably doesn't know his time of birth because of he asked that question. But you're going to love this card. First light, beginning a new circle, and would you believe it?
Oh, wow. It's a moon.
There's a moon.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, you just can't make that up. And obviously, as you said, with the new moon eclipse we've got, something closes, something begins again. So, this is sort of like saying to you, Aurora, and to everyone who's watching, know that there is a new cycle that is beginning. That first light that comes through, that first slither of the moon really is bringing in a new cycle, a new brightness coming in for you at this moment in time, where you can actually shine your light and let people see who you truly are, and what you can bring into the world, and the benefits and the bounty that is going to come through it. So I'm just so pleased that card came out for you, Aurora, and everyone watching, and how it ties in so nicely with what we've been talking about today, which is, as the universe always does with these cards. So a beautiful card for you, Aurora, and everyone who's actually watching this now. I'm sorry to hear that, Andy. Yeah, it's yeah, and I think it was a UK thing. Sort of like, I think now they put the dates and the times on, but back in the 60s and the 70s, they didn't really put dates on them. So it's good that they do that now, so that people can actually see what they've got. So, Aurora, do you have any insights or thoughts or last words of wisdom for our viewers to help them through what's going on in the skies at the moment?
I think that, well, it relates to the card that you just pulled, but also what we're going through cosmically this year. I think what we're in the midst of is really the end of a very old established system that needed to fall apart, that needs to change, in order to have this new cycle begin. And so I think this whole year, with all of these planets moving into new signs, if we go back to November when Pluto moved into Aquarius, that was certainly a shift in energy. Neptune will be moving into Aries next at the end of the month. We'll feel that again. Then we have Uranus moving out of Taurus into Gemini. All of these changes are going to shift some of this stagnant energy that has been so tied up for so long, and it will make opportunities for new things to be birthed. So if you are feeling stressed out, I would say consider letting go of things that you feel like you've been holding on too tightly to, just enough to give your stress levels a break and to lean into trusting that the universe knows what it's doing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And Janeki says, really great talk, especially with the planet's positions and what to be aware of. And yeah, I'm especially looking forward for the power returning to the people and the old dissolving.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all are, and we're holding the space for it, and for those taking the action. But the more we hold the space, and we know it's going to happen, then it will be. So I hope everyone, you can enjoy this conversation and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have, and obviously Janeki has as well. So if people want to connect with you, Aurora, how do they do that? Do you have anything coming up at the moment? Do you have any free gifts off to share? You talked about podcasts.
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called Blood Moon Milk Astrology. Actually, I just recorded the last normal episode that I'm going to record for a while. I'm going to be focusing on having conversations with people, having creatives on, talking about their astrology. But I'll be doing astrology in the form of workshops. And they're small, they're over Zoom. So wherever you're at in the world, you can log on and join me for an hour with a small group of people. We'll look at everybody's astrology chart and kind of learn together as a group. So those are a lot of fun. And you can find all this by going to my website, bloodmoonmilk.com. It's all just one word. And I do private sessions. I also do a daily email newsletter called The Daily Dose. That's a $8 subscription every month, but it's better than Netflix because it teaches you to empower yourself through astrology every day instead of trying to distract you from your life. So there you go.
Beautiful. And I will put a link to your website in the comments after the show. So people just need to click on it. They don't need to go searching. They can find it really, really easily. Thank you so much, Aurorah, for sharing your wisdom. It's been absolutely a privilege talking to you. And of course, for anyone watching, you know, if you are ready for even more clarity and transformation, then I'd love to invite you to a free 20-minute live soul path discovery one-to-one video call, where during our time together, I'll pull a couple of angel oracle cards to help you gain clarity and uncover guidance from your higher self or the angels. And, you know, this is your chance to reflect, connect, and gain insight into your path moving forward. And I would be truly honored to chat with you one-to-one, guide you and help you take the next step toward living the life that you were meant to live. And I've also created a couple of incredible free gifts for you designed to help you connect more deeply with your guides and explore your future. So do check that out. And of course, again, thank you so much for watching. And for Janeki and Andy and Gemma for having the courage to come and say hello and ask questions. And I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more people who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you, and could really do with the wisdom and guidance. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe free and hit that bell button to be notified of when the show goes live. My other show, Oracle Cards and Meditation, Your Weekend Reset, which goes out live every Friday. I post new guided meditations. And remember, every time you like, share, subscribe any of my posts, my information, Aurorah, any of my guests, it really helps with us get our message out there to help and guide people. And of course, you can be part of that with the butterfly effect. And I look forward to you all joining me, same time, same place next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.